yelling at me. Now we're being recorded. Awesome.
Don't forget to record.
Thank you, Trey.
Yes, sir.
I definitely have a Monday brain. So yes, our announcements are, we have that new exercise review available. If you can't find those videos, do not look in recent content. That's because all of these videos were made for a previous class, so they're gonna have a later technically release date. So it's not gonna be in the new content. You have to look in the playlist section on my YouTube channel. Again, if you can't find that, I believe I posted that in the announcements channel, so go ahead and check that out. Trying to think, that's it for that one. And then, let me scroll actually down so we actually have this. We also have a guest speaker on Thursday. So come to class Thursday prepared for someone coming in. And spoiler alert, it is not Greg. It's actually a true guest speaker I don't think anyone here has met. So get ready, it's gonna be exciting. Ooh, Zoom link, please. Zoom link is in the description, but maybe it's gone now. Uh-oh. Sean, can you, or one of the TAs, TFs, grab that lecture link? I'm trying to see what it is. I have to get through this. I don't want to click it twice though. Excuse me. There we go, perfect. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna mute myself next time. There we go. All right, those are my only two announcements for everybody. Any questions before we jump into class today? I see one person typing, so I'll give, wait, us all a second here. Two people typing. I'll make sure that we continue, or I will mute everybody here just so we don't have to hear any background noise. There we go. All right, doesn't look like we have any more questions, so let's dive into lecture number 2. Before we dive into anything new, let's go ahead and review some terms that we talked about last week. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with the Java terminology that I and you will continue to work with throughout this unit. First things first, when I refer to the program and application, I mean what we're talking about on IntelliJ. Like I said, Java is a program essential language, meaning it's all about that program, all about that application. If you have an error anywhere within that application or that program, it won't compile. So I'm talking about everything inside of our Java project, which is the program and application. Inside of that program, we have packages. Remember, everything is contained within packages. Packages are what our compiler looks for to actually build our application or program. Inside those packages, though, you might have already guessed what it is. Inside of it is classes. Excuse me. Up until this point, we only know that packages contain classes. So that is what we have inside of these. Then inside of classes, we have things that are referred to as class variables. Class variables are those things that are accessible within the class on that scope, but if they're public, then they're accessible between classes. Inside of classes also, we're able to contain methods, not functions. Here we refer to them as methods. And then inside those methods, we have more code, but also other variables too. So if you ever want to look into a Java application at a very high level with our terminology, this is what it looks like. This is how everything is contained. So program contains packages, contains classes, then classes contain class variables and methods, while methods contain just variables. All right. There we go. We have our understanding here about how our applications are structured. So let's go ahead and go back to declaring a variable. Now, just a question out to you all. What would a variable named this season with the value winter look like? How do we exactly create this? Feel free to yell out at me.
String.
It's going to be a string. We're going to start with string. Keep giving it to me. What else is it? What after string, what do we put?
Season.
Season.
The season equals
New.
We're not going to do new because it's not a class.
Oh,
We're going to put a
quotes,
value on the other
winter.
end. How many quotes do we put?
Double.
Double quotes. Very good. Yes, we have string because that's our data type with a capital S because it's a non-primitive. The season equals winter in double quotes because it's a string. Let's keep going. What would a variable look like named inches of snow with the value of 2 look like? As you can tell, I made these presentations when it was snowing out.
Integer or int?
Int.
Very good. Yes, it absolutely is. Int.
Lowercase.
Int inches of snow equals 2. This is how we would define this variable. So now that we've done this, let's go ahead and create a program with these 2 variables that we just made. So what I'm going to do here, if you want to follow along, I have my IntelliJ open. All I've done is create a brand new program by doing File, New Program or New Project, clicked on New, and then made Java lecture number 2. So I haven't done anything since I created it because I was waiting for all of you, being patient on my end. Let's go ahead and start creating this program. So I open it up and I see my .idea folder, which again, I don't need to worry about. I do need to worry about this very, very important one here that's blue, called SRC, which stands for source. So we right click on this, and the first thing I need to do is not create a class, but create a package. I create a package because I need to tell my compiler where my code is exactly going to be. So this one would say first package. As you can tell, I put that all in lowercase. Typically with packages, this is just a standard that I've worked with throughout the years, is that everything is lowercase. Sometimes I've seen it a little bit different in companies, but most of the standards have been all lowercase for your package names. Then I'm going to now create a class because again, program, package, now a class inside of it. So I do right click, new, and then I'm going to say Java class. I'm going to call it program. Now, one thing I want to call out is that as we move forward in these applications, you'll see this class become a very popular name called program. Program is essentially telling us where our application or program starts, where it starts. So though it's not required that you need to call your class program, it's a good way for us as developers across the international community to know where exactly our starting point in Java would be. So there we go. Let's keep going here. Who can tell me how we define our starting point in a Java application? What do we need to make here?
Main method.
Main method. And I apologize if I'm lagging. I'm trying to watch myself to make sure I'm not lagging. If I clip out, because the weather does mess with my internet, let me know and I'll repeat that last section. So sorry about that, Jade. Was there any section there that, no, it's okay. Was there any section there that you want me to repeat? The whole thing. Okay, not a problem. So real quick, it's okay. Just for anybody out there also who didn't hear me, again, let me know if I turn into a robot, is that I went into the source folder, I right clicked, I pressed new package, source, new package. Then I named it first package. Again, applications, packages contain classes. I right click on first package, I say new, and I say Java class. I named it program. Again, we named it program because this is where my starting point is going to be. Though it's not required, it is a typical standard that you see across the Java community. Where our starting points go, that class is typically called program. Now, I heard the answer already, but just one more time, how do we define a starting point in our Java application?
Public static.
Main.
I love it. We're working together here. Public, static. We're missing one word though. Void main, and all lowercase main. Tell me what's in my parentheses here.
String. Bracket. The bracket.
Fantastic. Awesome job. Air high five to everybody out there. That is exactly how we build. Yeah, thank you very much. Absolutely. So yes, this is how we define our starting point in JavaScript, or Java, excuse me, Java. Let's go ahead and make sure it works. System.out.println is how we talk to us here on our terminal. And Kyle is doing weird things here. Hello. I'm gonna go ahead and run this by clicking this green arrow over here and pressing run. This will compile our project and all of those packages and classes. And then it's gonna print out to the terminal below here in a quick moment, hopefully. If my computer wants to go today. There you go. And we see our terminal pops up on the bottom and it says hello. Look at that, we're well on our way. Awesome job, everyone. Well, we're over here. Let's go ahead and define our 2 variables that we just talked about. First one was the season. How do we build the season with the value string? Oh my gosh, I just said it. How do we build the season with the value winter?
String.
Awesome
Okay.
job. The
The
season.
season equals winter. Double
And how many
quotes.
quotes?
Double.
Very good. Double quotes. And then I'll give us the next one. That was inches of snow, which was int inches of snow. And then we get a 2 inches there. Perfect. All right. This is how we define our variables. We defined it within main. Remember, these are called variables, not class variables, just variables because they're within a method. If I want to do class variables, I would put them up here. This is where we would put our class variables always. That's one thing I want to point out to everyone. When we start defining these class variables, you will always see me put them at the very top of our classes because that is where they belong, that is where they live. Class variables should always be at the top. We'll get more into that as we move through these lectures, but I want to let you know that's always where I'm going to be putting them. All right, fantastic. If there's no other questions about this, we're going to keep on moving on. Wrong way. There we go. We created a program. Let's keep on going. Let's make some good choices here today. Happy Monday. Let's make good choices. Let's bring back those variables, the season and inches of snow, winter and 2. And let's go ahead and talk about something we've always seen in JavaScript, but we're not going that far because Java is very, very close in some regards. Let's talk about this statement here. If inches of snow equals 1, then print school is canceled. Let's break this down real quick. We know that this looks like something we've worked with before in the past with JavaScript. Can anyone mouth the answer of what kind of tool we're going to be using here? A conditional, aka an if statement. So let's talk about if statements in Java and how they are similar to JavaScript and how they're not similar to JavaScript. Just like JavaScript, we use that keyword if. That's not going anywhere. And then we place our conditionals within those parentheses. We say inches of snow equals 2. And then we say print school is canceled. And then, so instead of console log up here, of course, we put system.out.println to print it out to the terminal. But let's take a quick look at what exactly this thing is. We've seen it's a little bit in JavaScript, but I told you never to do this. I told you never to put equals equals because we always use equals equals equals. We use those triple equals. That doesn't exist in Java. You can't put a triple equals in Java. For numbers, we're going to be using this type of comparison operator or this type of comparator. So for numbers, this is what we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and look at those other comparison operators real quick. We have 6 to choose from with numbers. The first one you've already seen was the equals. This is seen, and we'll bring in an example here real quick. So we have int a, which is equal to 2, and int b, which is equal to 2. Same exact values. Just follow along with me here. Is a equal to b? Yeah or nah? It is equal. Is 2 equal to 2? It is a yeah. Our values a and b are equal. So yes, it is true. Let's go ahead and go over to this one. The exclamation point then equals. Not equals. Is a not equal to is a not equal to b? The answer is false on this one because 2 and 2 are equal. Let's keep moving on. This is the greater than. Is a greater than b? No, because they're equivalent to each other. Let's move on to the greater than or equal sign. Are they greater than equal? Yes, because they're technically equal. So this is true. How about less than or equal to? Well, for the less than, no, it is not because they're, again, equivalent. And then same with a less than or equal to b. That one is going to be true. So look at our table here. This is how our comparators are working when we have 2 of those exact same numbers. So bringing it back to exactly what we were just looking at, let's go ahead and see this actually in a line of code in Java. So instead of this system.out.println here, what I'm going to do is put our conditional in there. So unmuting everyone, go ahead and talk to me through it. How can we check if inches of snow is equal to 2?
If
Parentheses.
parentheses,
inches of snow.
Very good.
Double equals.
2.
Excuse me. Very good. Absolutely. Double equals. Remember, double equals for numbers. And then we said system.out.println. I forgot what we actually said. Did we say winter is here or something, right?
School was cancelled.
Oh, school's canceled. Thank you. That was a test. Cancel. There we go. Awesome. So after I've put that there, I'm going to run with this green arrow here, press run. To Katie, I saw your question. How do you run the program if there's no green arrow? Make sure that this function is exactly how it looks. It has to be exactly like that for this green arrow to pop up. If not, you can try clicking this green arrow here in the top right. If not either of those, you can do, I believe, build, or you can do, yeah, run a program, or just press run down here. So you can go to run and then press run there. But if it can't find a starting point, again, triple check your main method. All right, awesome, everybody. It looks like school is canceled. Isn't that great? I kid you not, when I was making this, it was like that snowmageddon that was happening like in 2020, of course, but of course, we've already forgotten about that. There's so much stuff that happened in 2020. Anywho, this is how we do an if statement in Java. Any questions about this before we continue? Awesome.
I have one question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Andrew.
The double equals is only for integers, right? Not for strings.
Is for integers, yes, because we are absolutely about to talk about that. So great question and great transition. So would you like to know what happens with strings? Yeah, all right, let's do it. Let's talk about some string stuff. Let's get excited, everybody. We're gonna talk about comparators with strings. If that doesn't blow your mind and make you super happy on this Monday, I don't know what does. So let's go ahead and talk about that. What if this season is winter, print out winter is here? Now, when we talked about this, we have to break this down once again. We see this conditional on here on the left-hand side. We know what tool we're gonna use because we're smart developers. We're gonna be using an if statement. So we're gonna go ahead and write that if statement in here. This season dot equals winter. And then we need to print out winter is here. And of course, as always, we use system.out.println. So this is how we do that if statement. But again, as we already called out, it's not exactly the same how we saw in our last example with an integer. We have this dot equals right here. So why exactly are we using the dot equals? That's a very good question, Kyle. Let me answer that for you. Why we do this exactly is because the season dot equals, this way compares the actual value inside of the strings. Now take a very good or very close look at our the season in inches of snow here. String is with a capital S and inches of snow is with a lowercase I. One is a primitive and one is a non-primitive. We're gonna have to compare these in different ways. Non-primitives have to be compared in an alternate method. So we'll talk about that alternate method and why we have to do that here in a moment. But again, the dot equals, we compare the value that's actually inside of the string, its actual value. So right here, dot equals winter is true. However, if we brought an alternate example here, maybe the season equals winter, this is a very dangerous way of comparing something because it's not technically comparing the values, it's comparing the reference of the variable, the reference of the variable. So in this case, we have the risk of this actually being false. Now, if you try this example out in your Java, you might get a true, but there are cases that you'll get a false. So it's not always the case that you get false. But again, it's extremely dangerous because it's volatile in that way. And we'll exactly explain why this is happening here in a moment. But I see someone's typing, so I'll give everyone here a second to ask me any questions about this. Could there be multiple values inside the comparison? You're only going to want to compare the thing one at a time. So let's go ahead and go over to, let's go over here to this if statement here. What I'm going to do is copy this, or I'll just type it out because I'm not going to be lazy today. The season dot equals, and then we're going to say winter. Jason, to your question, can there be multiple values inside the comparator? No, because one thing can't be two things. So if we want to try to compare against multiple things, what we have to do, just like how we did in JavaScript, we use the ampersands to say this and this, or the two pipes, this or this. That concept is coming back over from JavaScript as well. So Jason, does that help with your question? Or did I completely go off on the wrong way?
That helped, Kyle. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. All right, any other questions before I hit Katie's question? All right, then let's tackle
I
that.
have
You
a
guys,
question.
yeah, Amy.
But you said one thing cannot be two things, but what about like x to the power of 2 equals and then a positive number? It could either be that number that's positive or negative.
Well, so any number to the power of 2, I'm trying to think. So if you're talking about -1 to the power of 2, would it be 1?
Yeah.
It can
Or
only,
if x to the power of 2 equals 1, it could be either positive or negative.
I think, I'm trying to think of that concept. If you square any negative number or positive number, it always comes out to the same positive value. So technically it's
Yeah.
still producing one value, but yes, technically the input can be two different things, but have the same output. Here in these conditionals, we're checking the output value.
Yeah, but
So-
an option for that case then is like if you take 1 divided by 3 and then multiply it by 3, it could be either 9 or 0.9 repeating or 1.
Well, we're gonna have to whiteboard that one out. We'll figure out exactly where we can do with those conditionals, but can't go through every concept. If it can be two things, then you're still gonna have to do ampersands or pipes, regardless of that, because Java thinks that two things cannot be one. So
Okay.
unfortunately, Java is a strict one here, and we have to go by Java's rules.
Yeah.
All right, awesome questions, everybody. I'm loving this. But Katie, I'm sorry, I promise I'm not being mean here. I know your question. What I want to do here is now start diving into what exactly references are. So let's go ahead and do that. I know everyone's just super excited to know what a reference is. What is this thing that's causing my headache right now with strings? Let me tell you what it is. Let's bring it over here to, not typing in there. Let's talk about references, or AK memory addresses. Now, before we go into a bunch of nerdy stuff, let's just take a breath and we'll talk at a high level here. Picture a neighborhood. Picture the neighborhood that you grew up in, or a street with a bunch of houses on it, whatever is easiest for you. And we're going to bring in those variables. Instead of neighbors in your neighborhood, we have data now. And your data has to live somewhere. Just picture again in your computer right now, just rows of communities just waiting for data to come in there, these little houses to store it. So we have our string, the season, winter. And what it does is that when we create that variable, it saves it to a house. It saves it to a location. It saves it to a memory address. And so therefore, winter is safe in this house for us to use at any time, so our computer doesn't forget about it. Now, the problem with references is that those references are those addresses. And every time new data is entered, it's saved to a different house. So when we do this comparator here with winter on the right-hand side, that's new data. That winter there, that second winter, is in a completely different house when we actually create that in our code. So winter is there now. Now, when we say we compare by references, we compare by the house address. So winter is in address 1, while the second winter is in address 2. Therefore, address 1 or reference 1 is not equal to reference 2, and hence it is false. That is why we cannot do direct comparisons like this with strings or any types of classes. What do I mean by any types of classes? Let's go ahead and bring it back real quick to the exercise you did last week. Everybody remember the area that you had to create for that area of a circle? Area, when you create that class with a capital A, it saves that reference of the area to another house. Again, if I create area number 2, it's going to save it to its own house. It needs a lot of house. So when I try to compare area 1 equals area 2, even though all the data is the same, it's not going to be equal because they're in 2 different homes. They're in 2 different memory addresses, 2 different references. So that is essentially what these memory addresses or references are when we're referencing them. So many things you can do there. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one up because I usually get yelled at for this one. So any questions about this and what this is essentially doing when it comes to Java in your computer and in Java code in general? See a few people are, several people are typing. I love when I see that. So does Java take up more memory than, say, JavaScript? Technically, it depends on the application. It depends on your application size. If you write the entire operating system of Windows or whatever in JavaScript, but only a small application in Java, technically they're two different sizes. But what we didn't talk about too much in JavaScript is that references exist in JavaScript as well. This is how our data was being stored in JavaScript too. But it didn't come into a problem until we came into a more strict environment, AKA Java. That's why we had to kind of more surface this concept. So Katie, to your question, it depends, but the concepts of references still exist in both Java and JavaScript. Cody, does this function kind of like closures in JS? I'm trying to figure that one out. Does this function kind of like closures in JS? What do you mean by closures in JS? And to Andrew, your question, no, that would be false, because remember, area 1 and area 2, if we look at what's on here in our presentation, are in two different homes, two different houses. Oh, there we go. I'm becoming a robot. Come on, internet. There we go. They're in two different homes, therefore two different references, so it would be false. If you did area 1 equals area 1, that would be true, because they're both in the same reference. That would be the only way that they would, that way you could use the equals for them to actually be true. Cody, I apologize. If you want to give me any more context into the question. By the way, I'm loving all these questions. So is it very rare for anyone using equals? Remember, the only time I'll be using equals if we're comparing primitives. So you'll be comparing integers, floats, doubles quite often. So you'll be using the equals with more numbers usually, or chars. But when it comes to anything with a capital S, like string, area, character with a capital C, you won't want to use equals. Instead, you'll be using the dot equals. Cool. Anybody else have any other questions? This has been great. All righty. Going once, going twice. Nothing. All right. Let's keep on keeping on then. I'm happy I have the same number of participants. No one's left me in a huff here yet for this. So let's keep trying, get more people off of here. Let's keep making good choices. All right, so we now know that we need to use this dot equals winter when we're actually trying to do these conditionals. To show you that I'm not blowing too much smoke, what I'm gonna go ahead and do is that I am going to show you how exactly it would cause an issue. What I'm gonna do is put new string here just to force it to create a new reference. So again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't if you just do equals winter, but this will force it to be a brand new reference. What I'm gonna do down here is that I'm going to say the season equals winter. I'm gonna say system.out println equals. And then I'm gonna put else here. To answer your question, I saw a previous question, can you do else inside of this? Yes, just like the concept in JavaScript, you can definitely do else here as well. It's absolutely there, not equals. And we're gonna go ahead and run this and see if it's equals or not equals. They are not equals, even though the value is winter here, and that's what I'm trying to compare it to, showing us that those references are sneakily behind the scenes being compared. So there we go. Whew. All right, everybody still with me? Take that deep breath. Everything's fine, everything's fine. And let's keep going on. Let's talk about the next big fun thing, the switch case. Something that we really didn't get into too much in JavaScript, even though it does exist there, we kind of want to get more into it here in Java and how exactly it works. So let's go ahead and bring in an example and talk about what exactly this thing is. All right, as always, we're talking about winter. Should have made this summer or fall or something and be more consistent. But we have our string, the season equals to winter. Let's start writing our switch case. We do that by using the keyword switch with a lowercase s. And then what we do is a conditional as well. So we put the conditional, or the thing we want to check, inside of the parentheses. I want to take the season and compare it to the 4 seasons that we have. So what we do is that we put the season, the thing I want to compare, inside those parentheses. And then I'm going to create cases for it, or things that I want to check against, AKA my first one being spring. I have my system.out.println. It's so humid and hot because it's spring. And you put more code in there. And then to finish up your concept or your case, you want to always put break. Make sure you always put break. So you start with case, then you put your concept, and then, oh, one more thing I forgot to mention here. Make sure that you put in double quotes for strings, but make sure you put that colon. Make sure you put the colon there in your switch case. We have our code down here, and then we end with that break. Let's go take a look at another example. We see case winter. System.out.println, it's too cold. And then these are two cases. You can keep having as many cases as you want to. You can have an infinite amount of cases until you, of course, run out of memory. So the switch case is perfect if you want to compare it to a lot of different things, maybe all 4 seasons or something like that. Then finally, we have one last thing that we can put into our switch case. Say maybe instead of, like, whenever I put the season out there, maybe I misspell it, or I have a different name, or I come up with a weird 5th season. In that case, we don't have something for that. We don't know what our user is going to do, because our user can do anything. So if we don't, or if we want to have a master case or an else in this case, how we have an if statement, the catch-all, if you will, we use this keyword called default. Default, and this will catch every other case that's not caught in the previous cases. So I have a question here. So is case acting as a comparison operator and if statement at the same time? It's not acting as an and operator. It's acting as the equal comparator. So what the switch case is going to do is ask, is the season equal to spring? If not, I'm going to keep moving on. Is it equal to winter? Oh, it is. So I'm going to run this code, system.out.println, it's too cold. So to answer your question, no, it does not act as the and operator. It's checking to see if your variable, the season, is equal to any of the cases provided below. So if you wanted nothing to happen, yes, Andrew, you would leave the default off, because default is technically optional within the switch case. You don't have to have a default clause, just like you don't have to have an else statement in the if statement. Yeah, no worries. All right, let's go ahead and see this actually in action so we can see what it does. I'm gonna go ahead and comment this out. Just like in JavaScript, I can comment things out with that / star to comment out on many things at one time. And down here, I'm gonna go ahead and put in our switch clause. So help me out here, yell at me, how do we start building our switch case?
Switch.
Very good, switch, awesome. And then what do we put inside this parenthesis?
The there.
The season.
The season.
The season, very good, or the variable, I like that. So whatever you want to compare to multiple cases, in this case, the season. So what do we start doing to do these comparators to see if something's equal to this, the season?
Case.
Very good, case. And now I
Colon.
want to start writing my cases. So I'm going to say, in this case, spring.
Oh, not colon.
And then you
Oh,
had it
that's
right,
a
though,
colon.
colon. No, very good, very good. So we say case, what we want to compare it to, and then the colon to say, okay, now after this colon is all of my code. So in here, I'm going to say system.out.println, and I'm going to say too humid. There we go.
COO. Cow.
Thank you, thank you. I get that wrong every time. All right, if I want to end my code here, what keyword do I use?
Break.
Break, very good. Break is specifically saying end here, stop here. It's almost like when you put a break in a for loop, it stops iterating. In this case, it stops going down all of the cases. So what I do here now, it always does that. I'm going to put the case that I actually know it's going to be. In this case, we know our stuff is winter, so I'm going to put winter here. Then we say system.out.println to cold. I'm learning. All right, there we go. See, we all learn from each other. And then we say break again. And then finally, what if it's not spring or winter, say it's summer? What do we do to do that catch-all? What keyword?
Default.
Default, very good. So default, then colon. Default, then colon. System not out. No idea what to do. Awesome. Very good. And so after that, that's what we have. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens real quick. We're going to explore the switch case to see what its personality is kind of like. So we run this, and it's going to say too cold because it's winter up here. We put the value of winter. So if we put spring, S-P-R-I-N-G, that, it should come back up here and hopefully say, there you go, too humid. So it checks that season against all of our cases here. What if I go ahead and put summer here? No idea what to do because it isn't spring, it isn't winter, so there was no case for it. So it hit our default action, which is to print out no idea what to do. Now, one thing I want to show you also in this example is that what happens if I put back winter here? I'm gonna go ahead and run it. It should say nothing's changed here, too cold, just like before. There we go, too cold. But what happens if I take out this break? I tell it no longer to run. I'm not gonna get an error here with Java. Let's see what happens. We run this again, and now we're gonna get back two different outputs. We're gonna get back too cold and no idea what to do. Again, this is showing you that break tells the code to essentially stop there. So if you forget to put your break and you're seeing multiple outputs, this is the reason. Make sure you put your break in there if it needs to be there. We can do this, and why we would want to do this is because you can include multiple cases sometimes if you wanted to. So as we know, summer here in St. Louis can be quite humid. So maybe spring and summer are both humid. So in this case, I can put summer or spring, and it would both say too humid. So we can kind of condense cases on each other. This is for anybody who wants to dive a little bit deeper into switch cases. It's not an essential thing to know, but I want to show you this is why we would want to do that. So there we go. It says too humid, but it still stops. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to let everyone see the code, full code. Any questions about this, feel free to yell them out. See one person typing here, two people typing. So I'll give it a second. Take a drink of coffee, take a drink of water, pop some popcorn. Oh, popcorn sounds really good right now. I didn't get to eat dinner yet. What was for the strings dot is equal? Are you asking when to use the dot is equal? Katie? I'm trying to, I see you're typing. Okay, so the reading said that the switch case wasn't used so much. Is it more common to use if else? Yes, so it depends on the situation. Say you want, for whatever reason, to compare a character to the entire alphabet. Is it A through Z? You don't want to write 26 if statements for that. When you have a lot of conditionals or things that it could be, a switch case is more preferred or recommended. But in a normal circumstance, you're only going to want to compare 1 to 2 or 3 things. So that's why if statements are more commonplace. So switch cases are good if you have a lot of things to compare at one time and have different cases for each of them. Not when to use it, but the right method to compare strings. So to compare strings, you wanted to use the dot equals. So when you're doing an if statement, if you're doing an if statement, that's when you're doing the dot equals. So the season dot equals, and then you put in whatever you want to put. The is equals, I believe, let's see if, yeah, is equals does not exist in Java. So you want to do the dot equals, and you'll use that primarily with if statements. Awesome. I see one more person typing, and we're on time still, so I will pause here. In your code, if you have spring, does it? Yes, technically that is fall through. Yes, that is an example of that. So if I put spring here, and I run that, everything right still, yep. We just saw it have too humid. You just experienced a fall through. So it saw spring, it fell to summer, and it did that system.out still of the too humid. Can I scroll up? Absolutely. That should be all the code. Hopefully nothing's blocking it, but let me go ahead and just move this down there so I can get closer together. There you go. Oh, cool. Great question, Mark. Yes, that is a fall through. All righty, everyone. That is the switch case. Any final questions before we move on? Cool, cool. Let's keep on going. So we have our switch case here. What else did I put on here? Oh, I did something last time. Let's go ahead and talk about loops for a bit. Looping through some loops. Now, we already talked about arrays, and I'll bring an array example in here. So we saw the string, square brackets. I'm gonna mess up on that so much. I don't know why. Square bracket, square bracket, square bracket. Spring, square bracket, seasons, and then we created an array here. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. So we created an array of 4 different values. Now we're gonna go ahead and loop through these in different ways, and we're gonna explore the for loop in Java. So we're gonna look at our favorite, the for loop. Take a look at this. It doesn't look too much different, but it does have some very key differences that we need to talk about. And the first and foremost being this guy right here. Usually with JavaScript, we always put let, but let doesn't exist anymore. We actually have to define the data type. In this case, it's integer or int. Int is how we're going to be iterating through that, or through our array. So let's go ahead and see an example of that. What we're going to do here is that we are, just like we did in JavaScript, system.out.println seasons, and then square bracket with an I in there to scroll through each index of our for loop. Let's go ahead and go over here to our code and do an example of that. So I'm going to go ahead and create the array. So I say string, let's close square bracket, seasons equals, what did I start with? Spring, ing, summer, fall, winter. There we go. So I just created an array of 4 here. So I need to create my for loop. Look at how we just did. Someone talked to me through creating the for loop. Now in Java, what keyword do we always start with? I saw it. You can also unmute yourself too if you want, but I saw people mouthing it, so thank you. 4, and then what do we do here? This is where I really want some input. Did I let you guys mute yourself? Yeah. Oh, I am being a mean instructor. I said I unmuted you and I didn't. Oh, psych. There you go. Everyone's like, Kyle, let me talk. I know it. Very good. It is int. Awesome job. INT here. Then as we did in JavaScript, I equals 0.
I equals 0.
What's over here?
I greater than.
Greater than.
Less than.
Less than. It's I less than.
Oh, less than. Sorry.
Seasons.
Dot length.
Dot length.
Dot length. And we're going to continue to use length here for a little bit longer. I++, very good. And then here we did system.out.println seasons. And then what kind of brackets do we use always to get things out of an array?
Square bracket.
Square bracket.
Square brackets.
Square bracket I.
And flippantastic, everyone. Let's go and run this and see what we get.
Ooh.
There we go. We got too humid because that was from our previous switch case example. But looks like we got all of our seasons out line by line. Awesome job. Any questions about our for loop here? I went a little fast because the only thing that's really changed is instead of saying let, we say int. That is the only thing that's changed about this for loop. Any questions? All right, let's talk about a more fun thing then. Let's talk about and you might remember this from past units, the for each loop. For each loop. That one specifically is looking like this, where we get the string season : seasons. What this does is that for each loop, it's going to iterate and grab our value for us. And we denote the for each loop by this colon here. So we're going to go ahead and put in a system.out.println and see how this exactly works. All right. And I just saw a quick question over to Mark. Let's go ahead and go make sure. Oh, I did. Oh, that's a correction on my part. I didn't note that. Pay no attention to the parentheses there on length. It is not like that. It is not a method. It is a property on the array, the length. No parentheses on that. So as we saw in the example, there is no parentheses because dot length is a property. I apologize for that mistake. Great catch there, Mark. All right, going back to this for each loop, we have our example in there, and let's go ahead and see it in action. So what I'm going to do is comment out this for loop, and I'm going to build a brand spanking new one. For, and now what we have to do is we have to put the data type that the array contains. So if I had an array up here of floats, I would put float next. But here we have string, so I put string, season, colon, and then seasons. And then finally, we system that out to print line them. Season. There we go. Save that, and we run, and we should get the same exact output because now we're just outputting that value. Now look at the difference between the two. One, we use the square brackets with an I to get the value out, and then this for each loop, we got the value out without having to do any of that hard stuff. So each have their place, but if you just want the value, you can do it like this. But let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into that. Before I do that though, any final questions about this for each loop? All right. So you might be asking yourself then, and I have been doing that every single time. You might be asking yourself, we have two loops, but how do I know which one to use in all of my assignments and all of my projects? And that's what we're really going to talk about here. Let's first bring in the for each loop. You use, just like I just mentioned, you use the for each loop when you want just the individual value and you want to do something with it. If you just want to get the value, if you just want to get the value and do nothing and just use it somewhere else. So if we just wanted to print it out, this is a perfect way to do it because we just want to get that value and print it out to the screen and that's it. But then let's talk about the other side of the thing. The other side of our loop conundrum, the for loop, just the for loop. We do this when we want to modify the array, when we want to set it. We want to set it to something. So for example, if we wanted every season to be summer, which right now we're probably regretting because it's August in St. Louis, but if we wanted every season to be summer, we can do it with the for loop. We can modify our array with the for loop. We cannot modify our array with the for each loop. It does not work that way. You can't try to set your value to something in that for loop. What do I mean by that exactly? Let's go ahead and take a look at that. If I wanted to, again, set all of my seasons to summer, and then what I'm going to do is print out the array afterwards and see if it modifies anything. I'm really hoping that I did that right. There we go. Save that. We run that. Oh. We'll do 2 for loops so we can see the values. So let's do all that stuff over again. There we go. There we go. So we're trying to set, in the first for loop, we're going to set it all to summer. And then the second one, we're going to just print out the season and see it all over again. And we see that even setting it in the first for loop, when we reprint it out on the second for loop, nothing has changed, which again holds true that do not try to modify your values in the array using the for each loop. So one thing I can not stress enough. All right, any questions about any of this? Anything else? Have I bored anyone to sleep yet? Bored to tears?
I have a question.
What's up?
So, like in the exercises, they wanted us to pull out the numbers or like pick out the odd numbers, right? Mm-hmm. Why would you use a for loop for that instead of a for each loop? Like, because you're not changing anything.
Technically, you could do a for each loop if you wanted. It basically boils down to preference. So you can basically, like we said, you can paint the picture in multiple ways. So if the example shows that they're using a for loop in that, it's because you can. And typically the for loop is more, people go that route more often just because everyone's very comfortable with it. So you could do it either way, as long as you're not modifying it. As long as the example had nothing to do with modification, you could do it with the for each loop.
That's cool.
Cool, cool. Any other questions? Great question. Nothing? Nothing at all? Okay. Whew. Then let's keep talking about loops because I know that's what you guys want to talk about. Well, we need to loop until a condition is met. What types of loops do we use? You can tell me this one.
While loops.
While.
Very good, while loops. And then there's one more.
Do while. I don't know.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Don't say you don't know. You definitely know. It is the
I
do
definitely
while
do.
loop. There you go. Yes, it is the do while loop.
Yeah.
While loops will execute only if a condition is ever true. A do while, however, will execute once and then check its condition. So for a while loop, the condition is at the top, meaning it will only run if that's true. The do while's condition is at the bottom. Remember, we go sequentially. So run the code and then check the conditional. If you're going to ask the question, why do we have that? It's because there's a really weird cases out there that you need while loops versus do while loops and vice versa. So do I have an exact good example for you right at this moment? I do not, but if you need one, reach out to me. But they both hold their purpose. Any questions on that? And great answers, Chris. You're doing great. Anybody out there? Anything? All right, then let's dive into my favorite topic ever in the whole wide world at this very moment, collections. Let's talk about collections. We're going to introduce an old friend here, as we've already seen today in our examples. We have our arrays. So in this case, we're building an array of ints. So we say int, open and close square bracket. Layla, no yawning. Array of ints equals new equals new int square bracket and then the size of your array. This is absolutely mandatory. We always have to put the size of our array, and it can never get any larger than 10 if I put 10 in here. If I put 5, it can never get any larger than 5. So this is a really cool thing about arrays. It is structured to that exact size, but also a downfall. So let's go ahead and take a look at this in a physical sense. By the way, quick call out, if you see this triple dot here in any examples, including my own, that means that I was too lazy to put all the rest of the numbers here. And it means 6, 7, 8, and 9 are just hidden from view, but they are still there represented. You'll see this also in a lot of common texts and examples on Stack Overflow or on the web. All right, so we have an array here, but it is a fixed size. So if I wanted to put in text here or put a number in here, I would say array of ints, square bracket 3, and put 27 in there. What happens is 27 is sent there to that third address, third index. This is great, this is fine. But what happens if we need to do something a little bit more dynamic? So let's go ahead and introduce our friend Arraylists, who are very closely related to the array, but have some really good pros. Let's go ahead and bring in just the example of the array list here, just to let everyone see it real quick. Array list, integer, favorite numbers equals new array list. Now let's see how it exactly operates. If I said favorite numbers.add 7, what happens is that a new memory allocation or new little box is made there with the number 7 in it in the 0th index, the 0th address. If I say I wanted to add maybe 13 there, another box is added right behind it. See that it's now moved into unit 1 there, or address 1 or index 1. Let's keep adding numbers. Let's say add number 27. All right, now it's in 2. Now, as you can see, with the array list, we're no longer using the square brackets to push in information or to include information in our arrays. We're using this .add method. So let's go ahead and see this in action. We're going to come over here. We're going to comment this out and comment all of this out so we have some space to work. We're going to come, let's go right here. So we're going to do, what do we do? Integer, right? Array list. So say array list. And then in here is where we include what we want to have inside of our array list. It can only be one data type. Now, one thing I want to tell you about this is that I cannot include int here. That is not allowed. We cannot put primitives inside of those pointy brackets. No lowercase letters in those square or those pointy brackets. So what I have to do here is include its non-primitive or its auto boxing type, which is integer with a capital I. I can't spell it. Integer. There we go. I'm going to say favorite numbers. Favorite numbers equals new array list integer. Well, or I can just keep it closed, either one. So we see it's red. This is because it's a class from the utils. So we need to put our mouse over it and we click import class. We see if we come up here now, it just imported our array list class from this java.util. We'll talk about imports later, but you've seen this before with require inside of JavaScript. Yes, the wrapper class. Thanks, Chris. So with the array list for favorite numbers here, remind me, if I wanted to include a favorite number in here, what method do I use to push information into an array list? What is it? Very good. Add. Favorite numbers dot add. And someone give me a favorite number they want to add in there.
12.
There we go. 12 it is. And I'm going to go ahead and do one more here. Favorite numbers dot add. And your other one was 27. So I'm going to do 27. So there we go. We have just added numbers into our array list. If we if we system.out.println, I always forget the commands do that. Println, we're going to do a for each loop. So we say integer I favorite numbers. I'm going to go ahead and print out each one so we can see it. There we go. Take that. Yeah, put I in there. All right, save that and run. So we should go ahead and see two of our favorite numbers there, 12 and 27. They just printed those out. So awesome, we are now adding information into the array list. Let's go ahead and talk about what happens when we want to remove stuff from the array list. I see someone typing here a question, so I'll just give it a moment. You can, Andrew, to answer your question, you can fill it with any class or non-primitive that you want, as long as it has a capital letter. So if you want to put string here, you can absolutely put strings. This will get mad at you because I'm trying to put integers into something that's an array list of strings, but you absolutely can. Great question. Give it one more moment here before we move on. What if it's both of them? Do you have to put strings, integers inside? It can only hold one data type at a time. Array lists can only hold one data type at a time, just like arrays. You have to pick and choose which one you want. How do we get the particular value from the array list? That's a great question too. If I wanted to get 27 instead of 12, what I would do is I'd say favorite numbers dot get, and then the index I want to get. So I'd say 1 here because it's 27. System.out.println. Wow, I cannot type today at all. Println. There we go. We save that, and we should see 1 as our first output. So dot get is the answer to your question. There we go. We see got 27 first. Awesome, everybody. So yes, if we want to get it from a specific index, it's dot get. If we want to add information to our favorite numbers, it's dot add. Look at all these words being very helpful. Let's go ahead and talk about how, one second. I'm a bit confused on exactly what constitutes a collection in Java and what doesn't. Clearly an array list is a collection, but is a basic array. No, a basic array is just like a data type of container. A collection is a, think of it as a cut above of an array. So collections are containers for data that you can do more things with. So like you saw with array lists, they're able to expand and contract depending on the information inside of them, while arrays are set in memory and it can only have how many spaces you've defined with them. Mark, to your second question there, yes, it does have to deal with objects. It's a class, so it's definitely an object. We know it's an object because we say new and then array list. In addition, this array list does also have other helper methods. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to keep moving forward here. Last thing I want to show you guys is that, okay, we've added 3 numbers in here. We added 7, 13, and 27. And now what happens if we want to remove information? We use dot remove, and then what index we exactly want to remove. In this case, I say I want to remove index 1. I want to get 13 out of there. So watch very closely to what the array list does, because this defines its personality and how it can help us in our assignments. What it does is it goes in there and it grabs 13 out of there. It takes 13 out of the array list. Now, typically in an array, we'd see an empty slot there, but that's not how array lists work. Instead, it moves 27 down to the first index. It shrinks the array list to where it should be. So it will never have spaces in between it if you remove data out of it. So remember this when you're working with array lists, because it's extremely different from arrays when you, especially in JavaScript or Java, when you remove data, it's usually just an empty slot. That's not how it is in array lists. All right. Any questions on that?
How do we see it afterwards? Like now that we've removed it, how do we see the new array? Do we just can it, when you do to print it out, it will just show the new one, or like how do we see it?
Yeah, if you want to print it out. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and add one more favorite number. Give me one more favorite number here to add in.
3.
3. All right. So we have 3, 12, and 27. So let's go ahead and print it out and see that it's all in there. So what I'm just doing here is the for each to print out the array. There we go. And let me see if I can actually just print out the whole thing. System.out.print line. There we go. I always forget what it actually does with that. It might just print out the reference. If you click this, let's see what happens, because that would be cool to show you anyway. No, it does. It actually does print that out. Perfect. So here is our array right here. So we're actually printing out our favorite numbers to the screen. Let's go ahead and then favorite numbers dot remove. I'm going to remove index 1. And then I'm going to run it. Oh, I got to print it out so we can actually see the ending result, Kyle. There we go. Let it compile and we rerun. So we should see 2. We should see the one on the top to be 12, 3, and 27. And then the one on the bottom just being 12 and 27. So as we can see, it shrunk. Right? Shrunky dunk. So that is how these array lists are working. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
So
Okay.
are all
Yeah.
methods, do they actually affect the actual, like, are all methods like that, or they actually affect the object or number, whatever it is you might be modifying?
It depends on the personality of the method, what the method actually does. That's why it's very important to know what method you're using. So in this case, .remove, yes, it directly impacts the object. Do all of them? Absolutely not. There's a lot of Boolean methods out there that just return true or false, depending on what the array is. Another method would be for favorite numbers, and we'll talk about this later, is that we don't have a .length here, we have a .size. So .size doesn't do anything to the favorite numbers object or the array list. It just returns the length of it. So does that kind of circle what you're talking about, Royce?
Yes. I just remember in JavaScript you had to reset or like redeclare what it was and then use the method for some of them. I can't think of which one in particular I'm thinking of.
So sometimes you're talking about splicing. Sometimes you had to like catch it in a variable, and sometimes it directly impacted it. Unfortunately, I don't have any good way to help you remember other than make sure you're reading what that method does, because each of them do something different. So there's no way to easily tell if it's going to directly impact it or not, unless you read the documentation or just know from previous experience.
Okay, got it.
Awesome, great question there. Yeah, I know. I hate that, especially about splicing, because I use it all the time. I always forget if I have to catch it or I don't have to catch it. I always have to like do a small example for myself. All right, cool. Any other questions about this array list before we move on? All right, then stick with me here. We got one more thing to talk about. Let's go ahead and talk about not an array list. We've seen arrays. Let's talk about something else that we talked about in JavaScript, the object, and how it can exactly work with those things in the Java context. In that case, something that looks kind of like an object in the Java world is the hash map. The hash map. So here we are defining out 2 data types. But before we get into all of this, let's go ahead and just show what this is. We're going to say favorite numbers again, and we're going to start interacting with this hash map. So we're going to run this method here, favorite numbers.put. We want to include data inside of a hash map. We want to use the method .put. And now look at these very, very closely. Kyle on the left-hand side, 7 on the right. We have a string on the left-hand side, an integer on the right. Do we all see that? Now look in our pointy brackets up here for hash map. String on the left, integer on the right. Those directly correspond to how you interact with the .put method, because you are asking two very specific things, and we'll get into that in a moment. So when I do this .put, what happens in my hash map? It says Kyle, in quotes, equals 7. So let's go and put someone else in there. Let's put our favorite friend, Sarah. Favorite numbers.put Sarah with comma 27. And this one, it says Sarah equals 27. Now, really close, pay very close attention to this next example. If we say now on our third line down, favorite numbers.put Kyle 33, what happens is that 7 is updated to 33. Remember, in objects, can you have the same key inside of an object? No, they have to be unique. Hash maps are a lot like objects. The left-hand side of your put is your key, while the right-hand side is your value. Kyle was the key. Kyle has to stay unique, while 7 was the value. 7 can be whatever it wants. If you use the key, it will update it in that hash map. So make sure that your keys in your hash map always stay unique, just like an object. Hash maps are a lot like that. Let's go and see this actually in the wild. All right, talk me through it here. How do we begin building a hash map? Who saw it or who remembers it? What keyword do we start with?
Hash map.
Hash map.
Hash map.
Very good, hash map. And then what's inside of these? String, but string is also considered what? It starts with a K.
Key.
Key.
Or key. This is going to be the data type for our key. String is the data type for our key. And then we put integer here, but integer is the data type for the value. Very good. Awesome job, everyone. So we're going to say favorite numbers again. New hash map. Just like that. Of course, we have to come over here. I put my mouse over hash map and I press import class. I'll do this and bring this in to our application so I can use it. Excuse me. So like we said, favorite numbers. All right, who wants to give me a favorite number?
3.
All right,
Pi.
Jade says 3. Amy says pi. Oh, come on. Favorite numbers dot put. Amy says 3.1415.
92653589792234626433832795028484795028497.
We can't do pi. I forgot about that. It is an integer. I need an integer
Oh
favorite
fudge!
number.
Just do the 31415 then, without the
All right.
decimal.
There we go. All right, no decimal. Do 31415.
I have
Fantastic.
320 digits memorized,
More than me.
and I can recite it while solving the Rubik's cube.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Well, you guys know what a savant is, right?
I have heard of it, but we
I'm
can't
a
talk about that
savant.
right now. We have to continue on this because I'm running out of time. So,
Okay.
then the final one, give me one more number here. Anybody got one?
11.
11. All right. So we have Melanie and 11. I just spelled your name wrong. Oh my gosh. Melanie. Oh my gosh, I deleted the wrong number. I can't type.
That hurts, Kyle.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. All right, let's go ahead and system.out.println and see exactly what we're creating here. .println. Favorite numbers. There we go. It's going to run this, and I always forget. I think it prints out the, yeah, it does print out the hash map. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. And we see that our hash map looks exactly like we just saw it. It's in those curly brackets. Remember, that's what an object looks like. Then we have Melanie, which is our key, equals 11. Jade equals 3. Amy equals 31415. So we have our values there. Now let's go ahead and Melanie, I'm going to change your number here to Jade's favorite number. I'm so sorry. We're going to say 3 there, and we're going to see what happens. We see that we can have the same value between two keys, But if I change that back to 11 here, and I say that Jade is now down here, and I press save, what we see here is that we're only going to have 2 entries inside of our hash map. And Jade is now going to be updated to the nearest number, or the furthest line down, that dot put that equals it to 11. So it updated our value. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Update our value in Hashmap. So make sure your keys are staying unique. So this right here is how we interact with Hashmaps. So I'll leave it open to a couple questions for this.
Hey, Kyle, I noticed that when you had put in the keys, that when it printed out the keys, it actually put everything in numerical order. So, for example, when you had Melanie there, even though, you know, Melanie was at the very bottom, it still put her key first.
Yeah, it might sort it by, I don't know the specifics on how it's organizing it. It might sort it by the value's value. I don't have any insight on that one in particular, so I apologize. But it might do that just for its optimization's sake.
Okay.
Yeah, great question though. That is very interesting. I don't exactly know that one. See several people typing here, so I'll give it a second. Anyone just wants to shout out their question too, feel free. Even if it might not be fully formulated, I will still take it. If you're getting cannot find symbol all class Hashmap, make sure that Hashmap is not in red. If Hashmap is in red, that means it's not imported. So in that case, take your cursor and move your mouse over the red of Hashmap, and then there should be a dialog that appears, and go ahead and click Import Class. That is right. Thank you so much. Yes, it is based on that hash of the keys. Is it the hash of the keys? I guess so. It would be. Yeah, no, it totally would be, because you have to hash it before you go. So yeah, thank you very much, Jason, to your answer, and thank you very much to TF Gareth. What it does is that it hashes the keys and then sorts it by that. So it might have just been luck of the draw that it was organized by value at that time.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Gareth.
Okay.
You're welcome. Couldn't find my mute.
Could be a question of another. I've heard Hashmaps being used in coding interviews for solving intense coding problems. Is this the same Hashmap? It absolutely is. Yes, Hashmaps are used in coding interviews for sure, and so are Arraylists. So yeah, I mean, they're absolutely used in coding interviews. If you're ever curious about them or the challenges that companies or anybody in general do with Hashmaps, go ahead and check out HackerRank. They have a lot that are just dealing with collections, whether that be Arraylist, the Hashmap, or others that we haven't talked about. So definitely check out HackerRank if you're interested in those.
HackerRank?
HackerRank, HackerRank. It's a full thing on collections, and they are fun. All right, any final questions, y'all? Because we are, oh my gosh, I did miss it again. Finished. I spill it every single time. Every time. It's like the last 3. I was trying to find it before class and I did not save. Oh, all right. Finished.
Hey Kyle, before we split off, do we have class Monday? Do you know?
What a fantastic question. Let's go and look at that. Isn't that convenient? Right here. All right, let's go ahead and see. Oh, I might not be in the right one. I'm not. Oh no. Hide your eyes. Or no, don't hide your eyes and just check this out in the recording, but that's all the classes. All right, let's see. No, we do, because we have a guest speaker. Am I going crazy?
I thought you said that was
Hey,
Thursday.
guest speakers Thursday.
It is Thursday. Maybe, you know what? We
was
don't
guest
have class.
speaker.
I guess we don't have class Monday.
It's Labor Day.
I apologize.
Labor Day. Yeah.
It is Labor. Yeah, it's Labor Day. That's right. Yeah. Okay. definitely do not have class on Monday. So yeah, great call out there. Thank you very much, because I completely forgot it's literally almost September. So no class on Monday. So there you go. For making it through the class, I reward you with no class on Monday. Aren't I gracious? All right. Any final questions before we are done and you don't see me for a few days? All right, everyone. Well, as always, thank you for sticking with me. Enjoy your studio tonight. The video will be out there at 8:15. If you have any questions, direct message me. Other than that, I will see you all on Thursday.